Morning, my name's Simon. Welcome to Bennett's BikeSocial, and welcome to sunny-ish Scotland, and welcome to the launch of Triumph's 2024 Tiger 1200s. Welcome to the launch of Triumph's 2024 Tiger 1200s here in the whoops and swoops of Scotland. Not raining for a change, almost sunny. So the last time I rode a Tiger 1200 was last year in Scotland on the NC 500. Absolutely perfect weather, the best weather I've ever had in Scotland. Wall to wall sunshine, t-shirt weather. It was a beautiful ride. And then the time before that, it was raining in Scotland, and you could say the ride didn't go quite as planned. Not the bike's fault; it's my own fault for getting giddy. But yeah, it wasn't the best result. And then the time before that, I was riding the 2022 model when the T-plane crank version of the bike was launched in Portugal, and it was really sunny there as well. But that was in 2022, that's only 2 years ago, so it's fair to say that the 2024 bike is an update, some minor tweaks, rather than a full-scale revamp. However, plot spoiler, those minor tweaks are very, very significant. So we'll get into all that in a minute. The first thing to say is that the Tiger 1200 range is the same as it was. So I think Triumph have dropped actually the base GT model. So now we have the GT Pro and the GT Explorer. GT referring to the fact that it's a 19-inch cast front wheel, shorter travel suspension, so the more road-based version of the bike. And then there's the Rally version, the Rally Pro and the Rally Explorer. That's the one with the 21-inch front wheel, the wire spokes, the longer travel suspension, the more off-road dynamic. And there is the differential between the Pro model and the Explorer version. The Pro is the 20-litre tank, the Explorer gets the 30-litre tank, and they also come with heated seats, and it comes with the sort of blind spot rear radar detection, all of which I'll get into in a minute. So that's the same as it was before. So, and it's the same engine, it's the same 1160cc inline triple, making 148 horsepower at 9,000 RPM and claimed 96 pound-foot of torque at 7,000 RPM. Borrowed obviously from the speed triple, but retuned substantially. It's worth just a quick note there to say 1160cc is now actually at the smaller end of the flagship adventure bike market. If you think about it, BMW are now up to 1300cc. Obviously KTM's Super Adventure, 1290 Super Adventure, is actually 1301cc. So at 1160, the Triumph is actually closer to the 1084cc of Honda's Africa Twin. So it's not the biggest adventure bike engine out there, which I think does have a little play on some of its characteristics in terms of the torque that the engine can produce and its actual characteristic. But speaking of engine characteristics, of course, there is the infamous T-plane crank. Now this was introduced in 2022, like the Tiger 900s before it. It's designed to give that smooth running triple a bit of extra character, basically by giving it a bit of extra vibration. I'm sorry if you can't really hear me above the wind noise, it's pretty windy today. I've got the screen up full, but I'm sorry, bear with me. Yes, T-plane crank introduced to give a bit more character, a bit more vibration. Now, I've done a really big deep dive on the T-plane crank several times in several other launch videos for the Tiger 1200 and for the Tiger 900s. They're all available somewhere on Bennett's YouTube channel. I'll just have a quick whiz through it now. Effectively, in a conventional Triumph triple, the crank pins are arranged on the crank at 120-degree intervals. So if you look down the crank, it's kind of like looking at a pair of Y fronts. It's in the shape of a Y. It's a very smooth running engine. As far as the ride is concerned, it's good with its primary vibration, it's good with secondary vibration, so it feels like a very smooth unit. Triumph wanted to add a bit of extra character, a bit of off-road grumble, And so they did something which was, I think, unique. They put all the crank pins on effectively one side of the crank, so at 0 degrees, 90 degrees and 180 degrees, hence the T of T-plane. Now, if you want a sort of a kitchen appliance analogy, imagine a washing machine with a drum and you put 3 house bricks in it. If you put those house bricks evenly spaced around the drum and then spin it, you'll get a certain amount of vibration, but they'll balance each other. Now imagine what happens if you put those 3 house bricks all on one side and then put it on a spin cycle. That's kind of what a T-plane crank does. Now, obviously there is a balancer shaft in the engine to counter some of those vibes, and effectively Triumph can engineer in the kind of vibration they want to get. Now there's good vibration and there's bad vibration. Good vibration is that charismatic stuff that I've been talking about, but also it can actually enhance the sort of feedback loop between a rider's brain and his wrist and rear traction. I mean, I think there are some physics involved, but certainly from a sort of a rider feel point of view, vibration can actually give the bike a more attractive feel, more feel for grip. I think, you know, in terms of physics, it does actually give it more grip in some situations. But there's also bad vibration, and bad vibration is stuff that numbs fingers and annoys riders and rattles teeth and can even rattle bolts out of the bike. And obviously there's a slightly subjective dividing line between what's good vibration and what's bad vibration. Now, I was kind of okay with it, but I could acknowledge when I was riding the previous model Tiger 1200 that some riders would find that vibration bad vibration. It would be too overwhelming. And I think Triumph kind of agreed that there was, how do we put this, some market resistance to the T-plane concept. So that brings us neatly to 2024 and what Triumph have done to the Tiger 1200. It's a very short list, and if you look at it on a spec list, you would not be impressed. You think, well, it's the same bike. And largely, it is. Same suspension, same chassis, same electronics, broadly the same riding position. You know, it's pretty much as it was. But let's just have a little bit of a dive into what they've actually done, because it is interesting, it's fascinating. And I really do hope you can hear me over this wind noise. I'll keep my head down, so you might only be looking down rather than at the road ahead. But anyway, so the first thing, in terms of vibration, as I said, Triumph can tune their balance shaft to give the bike a sort of a desired amount of vibration. And so what they've done is they've redistributed the weight on the balance shaft, and they claim that computer simulation has shown they've reduced pitch vibration of the engine by 5%, down by 5%. They've reduced its yaw vibration, which is sort of, I guess, that plane, by about 43%, I think they said. And then they've reduced the roll vibration, which is sort of side to side, by 89%. Now, I must stress again, these are computer simulated figures, but plot spoiler number 2, it's worked. But I'll talk more about that at the end of the ride. So that was their effort to make the engine a bit smoother. Oh, I think we're just arriving. Is this the lunch stop? I think it might be, actually. So I'm going to have to be quick here. Okay, the other thing that they... in fact, what I might do is just ride on for a little bit, even though these guys... They probably won't let me do that. They might complain. Anyway, actually, no, it's not the lunch stop. Sorry. Anyway, right, where was I? Yes. So the second thing that Triumph have done to the engine is address the tendency of the Tiger 1200 to stall at very low RPM. So it's actually happened to me while I was in a car park trying to avoid paying. I did a U-turn. I had the top box on and all the luggage, and toppled over because the engine just died on me. Bit of a surprise, didn't expect it to. Now, again, Triumph have obviously sort of recognised this problem, and they've addressed it by adding more mass to the crank, about 1 kilo more, I think, and it's got a larger generator rotor as well. Now, the idea is to give the engine more inertia. And so I'll try and explain what that means. It's a fairly intuitive concept, really, when you think about it. If you think about your 4-stroke cycle, there's only one power stroke. The rest of the time, your piston and your rod and your crank are kind of not doing very much. They're actually decelerating. Now, in a multi-cylinder engine, obviously that is augmented by other pistons making a combustion stroke and keeping that crank spinning. But because Triumph have moved the firing interval of the T-plane crank, kind of leaving a big gap, quite a large dwell time between combustion strokes, the engine had a tendency with a really light crank to stall, because basically it's like, well, I've got no momentum, I'm not going to keep spinning, I've got no power stroke, so I don't want to keep spinning. So by adding a bit of weight, the engine just wants to keep on rotating even though there's no power stroke. It's a tiny subtle change, I'm sure, in terms of engineering terms, but in riding terms it's a massive change. It really does make the bike feel more controllable at low RPM. Again, I'll get into how it feels later on, but that's what they've done. It's a big advance. Again, not something that you really can tell by looking at a spec sheet. Big improvement. So let's just quickly rattle off the other changes, because there are a few more. So this is a bit of a gimmicky thing, but Triumph have added a thing called APR, which, let me get this right, is Active Preload Reduction. And what it is, if you press the home button here, if you can see that, for more than a second, under 52 miles an hour, the suspension will automatically lower itself to its minimum setting. That's taking about, in some circumstances, 20 mil off the seat height, so that when you pull up, oh no, we've got police here, so that when you pull up, you've got, you know, you're closer to the ground. It's easier for you to reach the ground. It's a bit like BMW's system on their R1300 GS. It's the same principle, except that bike does it automatically, without you sort of having to tell it to do it. On the Triumph, you do have to push this button. And as I say, it only activates below 52 miles an hour. And then if you press the button again, it will come back up. Or if you exceed 52 miles an hour, it will automatically rise back up. Excuse me. So a couple of words about the seat heights. The GTs go from 850mm to 870mm. That's their sort of two-way adjustable seat. And the rallies are substantially taller because of their taller suspension. 875 to about 895, so that's a pretty tall bike. So any reduction is a good thing, but it is a bit clunky. You do have to remember to push the button and get the bike to drop. And there is another caveat, which is that if you're a very light solo rider, you will get the maximum benefit because you haven't already preloaded the shop, so you'll get the full 20 mil. If you're a larger chap and you've got your wife and you've got boxes and a top box on the back, then you've already preloaded the bike quite a lot. So when you push that button, you might not get much of a noticeable drop. But every little bit helps, so that's a good thing. It's a free update, it's a software update for owners of the 2022 and 2023 Tiger 1200s. Next time the bike's in for service at your dealer, you can do that for nothing, which is good, so it's an extra thing. What else have they done in 2024? Not a great deal. They've lifted the foot pegs slightly and moved them closer together. They're on different brackets. The GTs had a tendency to grind their pegs quite easily, and I can imagine if you are lowering the seat as well, then that might make it even worse. So, and it feels pretty comfortable where they are. And what else have they done? Oh, the seat is slightly flatter, so the profile of the seat has changed. Apart from those things, I think I've covered it. That's not a great deal. We have the same manually adjustable screen. It's not electric, because look how quick that is. It's quicker than using an electric motor to do it. And also the motor adds weight higher up, not just the weight of the motor, but the weight of the brackets to support it and all the other gubbins. So Triumph say not necessary. Like I say, it's still got a whole suite of accessories that come with the bike. As standard, you get heated grips, you get heated seat on the Explorer models, you get a centre stand, you get cruise control, you get tons of kit and caboodle. Obviously not the panniers. They're about 1,500 quid, I think, to get the rack and the boxes. But yeah, let's talk about prices, shall we then? So for let me see how we start. We start with the GT Pro, which is the cheapest model. That is 17,295. Then the GT Explorer goes up to 18,695. Then the Rally starts at 18,295 and goes up to 19,695. And it's worth bearing in mind the differences that you get with the Rally. As I say, you get the different suspension, you get some extra software caboodle for the off-road modes. With the Explorers, of course, you get the bigger tank with its 300 plus easy mile range. I mean, we've been hooning around today and we're on, what, 45 miles to the gallon? I mean, you're going to get over 200 miles from the 20-litre tank, I think. So plenty of fuel capacity. Weight-wise, like I say, they're the same weights as last year as well. We've only got an addition of an extra kilo. I'll try and remember the weights, but don't shoot me if I get it wrong. I think the GT Pro is 246, and I think the GT Explorer is 256. I think the Rally Pro is, let's take a punt and say 250, and let's say the Rally Explorer with its 30-litre tank is about 261. How did I do? Did I get 4 out of 4 there? So it's not the lightest bike in the world. They are tall, they are heavy, but again, compared to their rivals, it's not. They're not outliers. They kind of fit into what a big adventure bike should be and what it should feel like. So yeah, I think, as a by the by, I mean, I'll mention this later on actually probably, but I think if you spec up BMW's R1300 GS to have heated seats and heated grips and all the rest of it, I think you're easily putting $2,000 on the price of one of those and making it more expensive than the Tiger. But anyway, let's ride a bit more. And come back to you at the end of the day, and I'll tell you how this feels, if you haven't already guessed what a massive difference this is to the engine. Oh my god, the bike is so much more usable now. But anyway, I'll get onto that. Let's keep riding slowly by the look of it. What are we doing here? 42 miles an hour. Should I drop down? I could do this whole route in second gear probably, but hey, never mind, let's not break the speed limit, eh?
What a fantastic 2 days here in Scotland riding Triumph's 2024 Tiger 1200s. And the first day, yesterday, absolutely poured down all day, just dripping wet the whole day. Today it's been beautiful weather, been able to rag the bike a bit more. It wasn't a wasted day yesterday, because in the wet it tells you an awful lot about traction, it tells you about throttle feel, it tells you about some of the changes that Triumph engineers have made to this bike for 2024. And you have to feel for them a little bit, because what do we say? We say we want more character from the inline triple, the 120-degree inline triple. So Triumph say, here, I have a T-plane crank. That's got more character, that's got more feel. And then we go, no, not that kind of character. That's too much. So they've reduced the vibration. And now the bike it's kind of in a Goldilocks zone of vibration, which kind of sounds wrong now I'm saying it, but you know what I mean. It's just in the right place. So you've still got a really, really smooth engine, but all those kind of gnarly T-plane vibes have been tamed off. If you've ridden the Tiger 900s, the original ones, or the first generation kind of this second gen Tiger 1200, the 2022 bike, you'll kind of know what I mean. There is a little bit of too much of that vibration. So these things, an awful lot smoother, which is a really good thing. It kind of shifts the bike. It had almost been disregarded in a way in that kind of adventure bike flagship market because of that. It kind of, for me, brings it right back into that game again, especially as BMW's R1300 GS, the new GS, is sort of, it's almost not like an adventure bike now. It's kind of moving away a little bit. So positive from that point of view. The other thing that they've improved is sort of the low speed running of the bike with the extra crank inertia. Again, that's another real benefit that you notice. Just feathering the clutch, rolling the bike around, first gear, low speed, absolute doddle now, will not stall. And as I say, I had problems in the past with the bike stalling doing that kind of thing. So that's been really educational as well. And it shows the differences that an engineer can make, or that a manufacturer can make to a bike that you can't see on a spec sheet. But inside, little subtle things have changed that make the bike feel completely different. So that's good. Other things stay the same. So the active preload reduction system, to be honest, it's a bit of a gimmick. It's not as good as BMW's R1300 GS that just glides down like it's coming into land. This thing, you have to push a button. To be honest, you can kind of feel it, but it's not a dramatic drop. It's a little bit of a gimmick. Like I say, every little bit helps. If you can benefit from that tiny drop in seat height, then that's great. But you know, and it's a free update, as I say, for existing Tiger 1200 owners. So that's a good thing. Apart from that, the bikes are exactly as they were. The GT, the Rally, just the same. The Rally with the riding position, the extra ride height. It's still quite a tall beast. You still sit on the bike because of that. And because of that, the screen protection doesn't feel quite as good. But it is a really domineering riding position. The GT, you still sit in the bike a little bit more, so you get a little bit more benefit from the screen. but I still prefer the steering of the Rally. I think there's just something about the GT that when you get on it, you can feel the resistance in the tyre at standstill, just turning the bars. It's almost as if, I don't know, there's some mismatch of the trail and the rake, some steering geometry thing. It feels like it's too much on its front end almost. And so when you steer the bike, it's kind of quite heavy steering at first. You do have to lean on the bars and give it a bit of a counter steer. Quickly disappears, but it's not as intuitive and instantly right as the Rally. And then we get down to prices. You know, I mean, if you GT Pro 17, this is the Pro, isn't it? Yeah, the GT Pro 17,295. Nothing's cheap these days. The Explorer 18,695 with its 30-litre tank and its blind spot rear detection and its heated seats. And then the Rally starting, what we got here? You can't tell just by looking at them. So we've got the Pro. The Pro is the cheapest one, that's starting at 18,295, and then the Explorer with a 30-litre tank is 19,695. Again, nothing's cheap these days, but if you took a R1300 GS, just off the top of my head, it's 15,990, but to get it to GT Pro spec, you're looking at adding about £2.5 to that straight away, so you are pushing it above the price of this bike, because it does come with everything as standard, the heated grips and your cruise control, as I said in the riding report. So there we go. I think overall, Triumph have made the bike the way they should have done it 2 years ago. I mean, it is a bit of a forehead slapping moment. You think, why didn't you do this in the first place? And then you could have avoided all that chatter about too much vibration. Anyway, now it's fixed. It really is great. If you fancy to go in one of these and been put off by the talk of vibration, go back and give it another go, because it is a different bike now. Anyway, that's enough waffle from me. It's quite a simple one, this one, quite a short one. Thank you very much for watching. Get your insurance from Bennett's. Become a subscriber. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. I'll come back and answer it if I can. And all that remains for me to say is thank you very much for watching.